Welcome in to Greenville Grit, Greenville residents in touch on 103.7 WTIB. This is the local show that keeps you connected and in touch with the issues that affect what's happening in your community. Greenville Grit is sponsored by Ribeyes, Kid Construction, and Greenville Toyota. Now, here are your hosts for Greenville Grit, Terry Williams and Michael Overton.
Hello and welcome to Greenville Grit. I am Terry Williams.
And I'm Michael Overton. Terry, we are here with our mayor, Alan Thomas. Alan, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
We have been going through, in case you've been paying attention, hopefully you've been paying attention, every week for the last, 2 months?
Yes.
We have gone through the entire slate of candidates for the Greenville City election as well as the incumbents.
Yeah. That's right.
So you can go on YouTube, check out everyone we've spoken with. There's only a couple we have not spoken with. That's because they did not return our calls. We couldn't get them coordinated.
Wasn't for lack of effort.
That was not
we
for
did
lack of
try.
effort. Matter of fact, I even made documentation of the notes in case they said I didn't try to reach them. So
Right.
I know exactly when I called them.
That's right.
But sorry for the two that didn't get on here. We would love to have heard from them. But we have had a good time, Terry, learning about people and just really getting to meet people.
And they can go on Greenville Headlines as well.
That's right.
And
So today is our last one, our last candidate. We saved it for Alan Thomas to come on. But before we get into this discussion, we thank the sponsors. So thank you to the Overton Group Real Estate Professional serving all of Eastern North Carolina. If you're looking for commercial real estate leasing and sales, business brokerage, or property management, look us up on the web at overtongroup.net or give us a call at 252-355-7006. Also, Greenville Toyota. If you're looking for a new Toyota or Scion or a new used car, go see Craig Goess and the Greenville Toyota team. They're located across from Fresh Market on Memorial Drive. You can dial them at 321-3000 or at greenvilletoyota.com. And then Ribeyes Steakhouse.
Ribeyes, yum.
Located at the corner of Arlington and Fire Tower, also a location in Williamston. Check them out. Fantastic steak, salad bar, and just a great atmosphere. You got Christmas is around the corner.
That's right. We have a great room. You can have your
Christmas
parties.
catalogs.
Oh, gosh.
It's unbelievable.
Too early.
But the reason I mentioned is that they have the Angus room. So if you're looking to have a company Christmas party, it's a great place. So we're going to take our 2-minute break, come back, and we're going to start talking with Alan Thomas. Be back in 2. Welcome back to the Greenville Grit. I am Michael Overton, my co-host Terry Williams. Terry, I missed you last week. Glad everything is good with Tommy and everything. But we are here to talk with Alan Thomas.
That's right.
So, Alan, what we've done on every show that we've had candidates is find out who they are. How did you get to Greenville? Where are you from? Give a little background of yourself for the people who really don't know. I mean, they know you've been mayor now for 4 years.
Right.
But people need to know where you're from. I've known you since 2002, 2001. In that area, we used to go to dinner with people from Greenville. We remember Jeanette Cox.
Right, yeah.
And
old Jeanette.
First time I think I met Alan was through there. I went to college with your brother, Bryn.
Yep. Yes.
And so I've known you for a while now, but tell everyone else there, how'd you get to Greenville?
Well, it's, the city has grown as well. There's a lot of people that have moved here even from 4 years ago. So there's a lot of new people that we greet.
That's
I
right.
meet them every day that are moving in here to the city for professional opportunities, for education, and to be near family, and just a great place to live. So I'm a 46-year-old father of 3 young ones. I've got a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old. They both go to Wintergreen Elementary and intermediate.
Right.
And I got a very rambunctious 3-year-old,
Yeah, I watch
Chase.
him on Facebook. He is busy.
He's an active guy and an absolute angel of a wife, Janet Thomas, who does everything. She's a pharmaceutical rep and runs the household. I'm gonna be honest with you. Decisions are made, but she executes.
Yeah.
She makes everything happen. She makes sure we're all we're supposed to be, and we are a family in every sense of the word. They are involved in what I do. They come to many meetings. They ask questions. They're very curious. And I'm so proud of them. I really am, and they're proud of me. And before I make a decision to run, we pray about it, and we talk about it. And we talk about it a lot because I'm getting at a point, where you've got young kids that are at certain ages, but they have all been very enthusiastic about the time we've had here in Greenville. So I'm an East Carolina undergraduate, studied in business, got my degree in business. I got my graduate degree in MBA at UNC Chapel Hill, and just this summer completed graduate studies with the at Harvard at the John F. Kennedy School of Government, which was an incredible experience with leaders all over the world. And I was fortunate enough to receive that on scholarship. I was one of 3 there on the Kahn Scholarship, which was and honestly, it was a recognition of a lot of the progress that we've made here in Greenville and Eastern North Carolina, specifically here.
Right.
We came from so much in 2011 in a time of disarray. It was post-recession. The city budget had a significant shortfall. There was a loss in property values. You're in the real estate industry, you know what that was like. And basically there was a lack of leadership in the city. There was no real direction. We had rested on our laurels so long with East Carolina and with Vida.
Right.
And we had no plan. There was no economic development approach. There was no strategy forward. And when Bryant Kittrell decided not to run and decided also not to run for council, it was time. I was chairman of planning and zoning, had served in that role as chairman the previous year and had served on Board of Adjustments before that. And for ECU, I had chaired and ran the Purple Alert Initiative, which was a lobbying entity across the entire state when we were working to try to lobby and get funds from the state legislature.
Right.
You know, to fund the heart hospital, which we were successful in doing. And I leaned on 2 decades of experience that I've had working in state government on both sides, public and private sector. I know what it's like to weave through that hazardous maze that's in Raleigh and how to get things done.
Well, and Alan, I believe you were from Vanceboro, correct?
I grew up in I was born in Vanceboro, and interesting about our city council, not a single member of our city council grew up in Greenville, North Carolina. Not a single one. It's kind of an interesting little note. That tells you how this community has grown.
Right.
But Vanceboro is only this is where I bought my blue jeans when I worked in tobacco during the summers. Everybody know, if you're of a certain area, you know what that means. But, you know, Vanceboro is just across the line in Craven County and a lot of family here. And this has always been part of my home. And I'm just so blessed to be able to have a chance to give back and put my energy into being mayor.
That's great. That's great. Well, tell us a little bit. There's been so much going on in the Uptown area this year and other areas of our city. We seem to have a whole lot to say about Uptown, but there's a lot going on outside of just that district. But tell us a little bit about the accomplishments that you've had since the last election and where we are as of today. Just fill us in.
I kind of look at it just a continuation from when we ran initially, and the strategies don't begin or end just with one election cycle. You need to be doing this every single day. And when we stepped in, there were several major initiatives, and we had a plan for what we wanted to do. We wanted to establish a plan in leadership dealing with crime, jobs, and growth to move this city forward. So we quickly raised the bar in law enforcement. We had an exit from William Anderson, and I wished him well as he went to Asheville, and it was a change that needed to be made.
Right.
And we recruited in an excellent chief in Hassan Aiden, and Deputy Chief Sauls was the interim for a period there. So that transition happened. We started the first Office of Economic Development the city had ever had to fill a massive void. Commerce and economic recruitment is my background. What I did for many years, recruiting business to different cities across the state. So obviously a key point of emphasis is the center of your city. It is the front porch to your community.
Right.
If the center of your city is crumbling and is falling apart, it creates a horrible impression. You can't recruit business, you can't recruit industry. It has to have some vibrancy, especially when it's on the doorstep of a campus with 30,000 students.
Right.
So we did put a particular element of emphasis on the center of our city, redeveloping that area from an area not just for a few bars and having no real day activity other than UBE in a couple of places. We wanted to establish a daytime business use, a twilight use with restaurants and entertainment, and then an evening use, which we thought would be appropriate. And quite honestly, we also needed to transition out some businesses that were recruiting the kind of people that were creating a crime element and issues that we just could not have in the middle of our city. Next to our campus. And so within a fairly short period of time, 2.5 years or so, we've made a magnificent transition.
Right.
And part of that is due to the Office of Economic Development, which the council at that time, 2 years ago, that we formed back in 2012 with the help of with members of council. And that point of emphasis was creating 6 economic development zones throughout our city. And one of those was in the Uptown area, so it allowed us to have special tools to provide incentive for the private sector to come in and invest. And invest they did in a major way. Over $150 million in investment since we began that initiative. And some tax abatements, which what that means is if you take a piece of property that's worth $100,000 and you build a structure on it, makes it worth $100 million. In order for you to cut that deal and get a bank to invest with you, we give you a little bit of a break for a couple of years. But then for the longevity of that project, we have increased the tax base tenfold to a multi-million-dollar piece of property. And the perfect example is the old Georgetown apartments and Hams and that footprint. Georgetown apartments sat there boarded up for years and years as an eyesore. Now that's a 550 or 60 person multi-story residential, retail, with a parking deck in the middle, and it's created this critical mass. And now we have 2, 3, maybe even 4 projects in our uptown area that creates an urban setting that we get the Trader Joe's and these places that we really want, the type of retail we're trying to create that transition. And Greenville is so close. We're so close. We're almost at 100,000 residents. And for me, that's a little bit, those of us that were here many, many years ago, that's very different. But it is the age that we live in, and it's past time, that we appropriately invest in our roads and our infrastructure to be able to continue to recruit the kind of jobs like Patheon and Maine Pharma and all these companies that pay high-paying jobs. We can get these young professionals to stay here in Greenville, North Carolina, instead of moving to Raleigh or other states, and create opportunity here. And that's where my energy runs significantly. And along with that, quality of life. We have to, in our neighborhoods and on our causeways throughout this city, and our greenways and all of our areas across the city, we have doubled the investment, doubled the size of our greenways. We're building section now that will double our actual greenway system within the next year and a half. And all of these pieces matter. We can't get so focused on one element. You can't read one encyclopedia and feel like you know it all. You got to read the whole book, the whole set. And the leadership going forward is going to be important. If we're going to keep this momentum, we need to have good balanced leadership and consistency that we can count on. And it's great to hear from Forbes now and from Wallet Hub and so many of these financial rating entities that are third party, and now they rank Greenville as one of the top growing communities. One has us as number 4 in that entire country in terms of growth and job creation. So we have a lot of work to do. There's parts of this city that have a population we need to continue to work, and we're really focused on. But I'm excited the change and the progress we've made. Anytime you're in a position, you always need to think of this factor. Is it better than how I found it? And anytime you're on council or anyone else, what are you doing to make that happen? And then what are the opportunities going forward? And we have Barbara Lipscomb. We have a great staff. Chief Aiden did a wonderful job as chief.
Now we have a new chief.
I was with Mark Holtzman this morning at the Scullery. He had a 2-hour breakfast with come one, come all.
Right.
And we've got a great group now. Merrill Flood's been promoted to assistant city manager. Michael Irwin, who's with the school system, is also our CFO. So we're really establishing a great team that's going to build Greenville into the 2020s and beyond.
And so we still have some openings, though, that need to be filled.
Yes.
And the economic development, as far as I have not heard, that's been filled yet. So can you give an update without, telling things you shouldn't say, I guess, yet, if it's premature? But we'd really like to know. That seems to be a lot of point of discussion with us, because we've been very concerned. That's just a big deal, and there's a lot of big shoes to fill.
You better believe it. And Carl Reese, it was incredible in that role. Carl's been with us from day one. And the minute we were elected into office in late November of 2011, we began planning the implementation of of Greenville's first Office of Economic Development. And we had opposition. Calvin Mercer and Marion Blackburn all railed and said we don't need to do that the county already does that. But they lack the knowledge to understand the county is in manufacturing.
Do something different.
They're statutorily controlled. And my background in commerce, I understood that we needed to be recruiting various sectors of business to this community. And so we were determined to do it. In a 4-2 vote, we passed that, and we redirected internal resources. We didn't add to the budget. Matter of fact, we cut taxes those first 2 years. When the economy was tight, when every member of staff was saying, you need to raise taxes 3 or 4 cents, we said, nope. We're going to have every department in the city to come in, pitch your budget, pitch your priorities, and doing that process, we did it all on television for everybody to see. We actually cut over 2 years, $4.2 million in costs and did not raise taxes, and also redirected economic development. And I say that as a background because Carl took from that first step,
Right.
put a staff together and was clearly instrumental in the economic development we've seen. Clearly instrumental as we brought Vidant on board and ECU on board, as for the first time came together as three big entities in the community and fully funded Uptown Greenville and hired Bianca.
Right.
The rest is history there as well. But for economic development, we need a dynamo. Carl is hard to replace. Electric cities came in and stolen from us. He's helping about 40 cities all over the entire state.
Right.
And he's still doing stuff here too.
We did not lose him. We have
Right.
an asset with Carl still here.
Right.
But now's the time to turn the page. There was an initial search by a city manager. And the criteria, I had a difference of opinion on that criteria. Rather than an old criteria, I felt we needed to have a criteria that will have someone keep them here for 10 to 15 years. That's aiming more towards the type of resources that will allow them to be successful. So when they went through that search and decided to establish a second search, so we are well on the way in the second search, identifying some final candidates to head and launch here going into this next set of council. Our large push for economic development. We have done wonderful things the past 2 years. Again, we talked about it, over $150 million in new growth in spending in Uptown, $400 million across the city, companies, small businesses, large and small. But it's time to turn the page on this, to really move this thing forward,
Right.
To bring these jobs here. So I expect sometime here, hopefully in the next 60 days, we're going to have someone that Carl Reese would be proud to follow in his footsteps.
That would be great.
Well, no, Alan, when you came on 4 years ago, we did have Chief Anderson's departure and the city manager left. And if I remember correctly at the time, Calvin Mercer was railing that these people were leaving because of you. Now, over the last year, we have lost a lot of people in the city.
Lots of people.
What would you attribute those continued departures to where we've been in the last 2 years?
I would contribute it to the same thing any company, in any business. Some people retire, some people get better jobs, some people have good opportunities, and some need to go. And I think it's a combination of all of those.
Right.
If I'm in the private sector, this is something we deal with all the time. I mean, I've worked in multiple settings in my careers, and I know you guys have as well. That is a negative narrative. That is pure politics. And they ran the same negative narrative a couple of years ago. That's the type of narrative you run when you don't want to talk about what's happening in the city, when you don't want to talk about the progress. You know, I don't send out a newsletter every other week, to give you my version of events. I'm actually trying to create the news.
Right.
You know, I'm trying to create the opportunities where we have business. And that's where there's, differences on council. Different people have different approaches. Some are there to report, some are there to do. I mean, I ran for council with a bit of impatience because I saw a downtown deteriorating. I saw crime out of control. Now we have the lowest violent crime rate in 2 decades here because of focused deterrence, because community policing, all the things that we've done. We were recognized in the White House this summer for the complete turnaround in the drop in crime. Now, there's always crime.
Right.
And we need to be vigilant. And we've got a lot of TV here that loves to report it. That's part of the job, and we understand that. Across they report when we do good things and also with challenges. But, narratives of those nature, I'll let them be accountable for those. I'm here my simple deal is I'm trying to bring opportunity here. I'm going to be positive, and I want to be measured on the merits of what we accomplish, not what we talk about.
Right.
Well, I know you mentioned too a while ago with the vote for economic development, and we discussed that, the 4-2 vote. Now there's some ads running on the air right now talking about block voting, and it seems to have swung the other direction of 4-2. What do we need to do as a city to get past this? Because it seems to be a division on one side or the other to bring council together and do what's right for the city.
Well, I think there has been a fundamental, there is a lack of trust, I think, between certain members of council. Many have extended a hand to try to work and keep initiatives moving. I will say for 2+ years, the economic development pushed downtown. The launch of the Office of Economic Development. Many of these retail projects you're seeing were all birthed in 2011 and 2012. Right. The parking deck, the new hotel, all these things we created the catalyst for 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
Now, since 2013, there has been a bit of a gridlock. There has not been a lot of thought or approach, despite effort. I approached day one and extended a hand to say, we need to fix our roads. We need to get our infrastructure in place if we're going to be serious. We need to get a second airlines here. And with that, it's been met with twists and turns on the path. And we have a bond referendum on the election this year. And I've really had to think long and hard about that referendum. And the bottom line is this: I know you guys served actually on the, the stakeholder group, which formed that, and it looked very different from what actually passed council, because things were circumvented you guys and ended up being added by the voting bloc on council, which quite honestly created a bit of a stir. My intent with launching the concept of let's doing a bond is to have a long-term bond strategy in this city.
We need that.
Like Greensboro and Charlotte, every several years, the private sector and the public sector are both looking at water transformational projects we need in this community. And many times when the public sector lays the groundwork, maybe Patheon or some other, or Vidant steps in and says, we'd like to help fund this project. But going through that vetting process did not happen this time. My thought is we want to have everyone on board for this $10 million we need for our roads. It is clear that our roads suffer from lack of proper investment. Again, a reactive council approach over a number of years instead of proactive. We made an aggressive move a couple of years ago to go ahead and approve $4 million for our roads, which again was
a block vote.
That was a 4-2 vote that
So Mercer and Blackburn also opposed.
They opposed that investment in our roads.
Exactly.
I mean, it's on the record. I mean, it's factual.
That's right.
So, but we would not give up, and I appreciate the support of Candy and Rose and others and member of staff, quite honestly. Kevin Mulligan got up and crumbled a piece of road one day. And that's when it became clear what we were dealing with. Kicking the can for a decade and a half, no more time for that.
That's right.
If you're going to recruit business, then, our major thoroughfares need to be functional. 10th Street Connector needs to be finished. Southwest Bypass, which we worked so hard to get funded after the state defunded it. And that's one of the mayor roles I didn't anticipate having to deal with Raleigh so much. But fortunately, we were able to kind of move some of that forward. But, the bond is on the vote, and I think the citizens are going to have to make a long, hard decision. Sometimes you have to look at the overall value of what you're doing. And if you want to make a statement on individual council members or me or anyone else on how we approached it, then you can do that in their ballot box. And but at the end of the day, we can't afford to not fix our infrastructure.
Well, right now will be a good time to take our second commercial break. So we're going to do that. We'll be back in 2 minutes. We're going to wrap it up with Mayor Alan Thomas. Be back in 2.
Welcome back to our show. Today we have had the honor of having our current mayor, Alan Thomas, who is also candidate for re-election, with us today. And we appreciate so much you taking the time out, because it's a busy time, and we do appreciate it. Alan, you had a wonderful endorsement printed in the paper. From fix that for me. I want to read from our former police chief, and gave you just great compliments into our city as well. But this is what it says. It is great to see the progress continuing at such a pace in Greenville. It was a tremendous honor to serve you and your community during my time as chief of police. The commitment to progress in Greenville is incredible. That drive and positive vision starts at the top, with the leadership of Mayor Alan Thomas and City Manager Barbara Lipscomb, as well as the multitude of community leaders. Mayor Thomas set the agenda when I arrived, supporting true community policing, which you talked about a few minutes ago, on the personal level and data-driven results. He was there. There it goes again.
Poor thing, Terry.
I know, it moved for me. Sorry about that.
That's teeny. There you go.
Here we go.
You lost
Okay,
your place.
that's all right. He was there in every possible way, not just in word, but as committed partner working in the community on the government level or wherever needed. I deal with many communities across the country and internationally on a daily basis, and I can tell you that Greenville is fortunate with the leadership you have directing the city forward. In today's environment, exceptional progress does not happen by accident, nor does it continue without consistent leadership, maintaining. It is gone again. You're going to have to fix it. I'm sorry. I don't know why it keeps doing that. But anyway, maintaining that momentum. Greenville is now recognized nationally for progress in law enforcement, quality of life, and economic development. I hope to see that continue far into the future. Thank you for the tremendous hospitality you shared with me and my family during our time with you each day. Even though we are now away, Greenville will always be a part of us. Hassan Aiden. And that is just quite a compliment to you and to our community, but your leadership has been proven.
Well, I'm not going to even try to follow that with words. I think, Hassan committed himself here to a process, and we all did, and we worked so hard.
And
so
Alan,
much goes
just
unknown.
I hate to interrupt, but you got about 30 seconds if you want to tell people what to do, how to vote, how to donate, whatever. It's
Well,
yours,
very
30
simple.
seconds.
We have my call is always just go vote, and I would appreciate your support to continue the progress we've seen. I think we've proven we're on the right track. You'll hear a lot of noise out there, but always try to separate talk from action. I think that's the key thing.
That's right.
Anybody can promise or tell you many things, but ask them what they've done. I've got two wonderful individuals, nice people that are running, but they have not been involved in the city on any level in over 30 years. This city has changed tremendously, and we have to face challenges out of Raleigh in many areas. And to get this thing done, I need your support. Early voting starts October 22nd. Go get that done if you want.
If they want to give you anything, do you have a website set up? Or?
ElectAlanThomas.com is my website, or get me on Facebook.
Well, thank you for coming on the Greenville Grit. Again, check us out on YouTube, also on Friday night, 6:30, Saturday morning, 9:30. Until next week, see you back at the Greenville Grit.